have an opportunity to revolutionize and modernize our energy sector locally. We have to always be cognizant of the fact that 50% of Namibians still rely on firewood as their primary energy source. And that's something that we need to change. And I think that with ongoing projects and ongoing developments within the sector, we're going to see more and more energy generation switch from fossil fuels and very rudimentary fuels such as firewood into more modernized fuels and energy. I specifically refer to the NamPower project, which is looking at generating 40 megawatts of electricity from bush. There are also smaller scale technologies that could help decentralized electrification as well. And then some of our large industrial energy users in the country have also made the switch from fossil fuels such as coal and heavy fuel oil to using a renewable biomass. So I think in terms of our market potential in Namibia, that's the singularly biggest potential for us, because energy, every Namibian needs energy. And that's where the real opportunity is. In terms of our soil health, biomass has a big role to play, both from a biochar perspective, also from a composting perspective. Namibia generally has very poor soils, and this land degradation doesn't help that, and the poor rainfall doesn't help that. So for our subsistence farmers especially, I think there's an opportunity to leverage the biomass resource to improve the quality of our soils, and that will obviously also have a positive impact on the agricultural productivity as well as the food security for those marginalized subsistence farmers. We are also developing biochar projects in Namibia to prove the high potential for biochar to improve crop health and productivity, as well as to retain more soil moisture and nutrients in the root zone in agricultural systems.
What are the domestic markets when talking biomass utilization?
Well, obviously it's a braai. That's what people want to utilize it. But you see more people that are in the regenerative farming space asking and also getting training through our ministry in biochar, for example, that also has downstream effects in terms of fertilizers. You see also opportunities for people making animal feed. And one of our programs that we have in Oshuarongo is a project that looks at packaging, because that's also a sector. You get people that can package charcoal, but we're also training them in making animal feed. And then we're also training them in terms of ensuring that they know and appreciate standards. But there are also other things now, looking at alternative building materials, which is one of the National Land Resolution, National Land Conference resolutions. And I think we, as a ministry, we are starting to front load what we learned from that value chain study of GIZ of 2015 around that it can also support the housing sector.
In a way it's a challenge, but in another way it's a huge opportunity, is to expand the bush thinning and the whole biomass program from the freehold land onto some of the communal areas where there's severe bush encroachment. It is more difficult because of ownership issues, but we've got around that in the wildlife sector, the forestry sector, and in other ways. And through smart partnerships and other mechanisms, one can bring the same sorts of benefits to the farmers in the communal areas and the ecological benefits that are taking place on the freehold land at the moment. So I think that's one of the next areas that really needs to be explored, and the whole program developed in those areas. Areas like the Okokorara area, for example, where there's severe bush encroachment, those areas also need attention.
Okay, great. And Michael, you spoke about stuff that we need to do. What's that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of issues. We need to ensure that we develop entrepreneurs, the SMEs. We do some training along with the Charcoal Association. We have trained so far more than 50 SMEs, MSMEs. We also need to ensure that we have appropriate standards. That is key for the Namibia Standards Institute. We need to ensure that we have incentives that support the development of those alternative value chains, whether it is animal feed or biochar, and even the wood plastic planks. That is very key that the Ministry of Finance and our Ministry of Industry comes together and develop incentive package that helps the newly entrepreneurs that are in this field to be able to be competitive. So it's very key that we do that. And also the VTCs, our vocational graduates institutes, needs to ensure that we have a supply of people that are able to get into this industry and support. On the logistics side, which is also important because this value chains needs a lot of linkages to the other supply chains, such as your logistics, which is key. We also need to ensure that our SMEs that are in that space appreciate and understand what it means to be able to support such an industry or those sub-industries that evolve from that.
So we need to look at the next generation of products. We can't only be seeing this as an energy product, but what about seeing it as a renewable carbon source for the next generation chemicals and fuels that we could be running on? Why don't we see this as a point in which to take our country from being a primary producer of products to a tertiary producer of products?
There are very few programs which have a strong long-term economic benefit, but are not only environmentally neutral, they're also environmentally beneficial. And that's what we're sitting with here. So I think the programs such as this, which let people know about what's happening, are very important because the opportunities are huge. I think it's also important that we take these programs to the people overseas because Namibia's situation is rather unique. It's not something that people are familiar with. And when they hear about bush thinning or cutting bush, they automatically think bush deforestation. And we need to get that message across. We need to educate people, including the academics in Europe and elsewhere.